Hey yo, Shaxa here once again. Lately I've been pretty sick, but that is no excuse to not make a video, so here it is. It's not an update for the build. I am stepping into the next stage of the build, slowly transitioning into it, but that's not what we're talking about here. We are talking about tips and common mistakes that happen. I've looked through many POBs throughout the days, and both low budget gamers and high investment gamers have a lot of common, like similar problems, mistakes done in the build. So I want to go through those things and hopefully help some people out. So the first thing is that some people are running those Atlas keystones that make your gameplay unnecessarily rippy, right? This one that makes you take 25% increased damage for each altar you click, and then this one as well that gives you two downsides instead of one. And you really don't need those. Like, yes, they are nice, but you can make money, you can play the game without them. It's totally fine, right? So get rid of those. That will increase your survivability by quite a lot. You only want to do these things when you already are like at level 100 or where you don't care about leveling up. And in this build, you do care about leveling up until level 100. So I would recommend just not taking these for the time being until you hit level 100, and then you can blast away. Or, well, I mean, if you give up at level 99 or something, it's fine, right? But level 100 is really nice because it allows you to get all the juice that you can get. Well, even at level 100, I am actually still missing a few points to put in into so that I could grab all the juicy stuff. But all right, move on. Let's move on. So the next big thing for the build is the dexterity, right? And not everyone can get an amulet like me, and I understand that. It is, first of all, you have to get lucky, you have to get a good base with no bad downsides, and then you have to hit, like, you have to spend money, quite a bit of money. If you get unlucky, you can spend a lot of money. So you do want the +2, right? So that's very important. The +2 and level 4 Empower allows you to get level 29 Blade Vortex. Um, well, actually now, because I have this weapon, I'm 31, but it allows you to get 29 levels for your Blade Vortex, and that gives you +1 base radius to the scale, and that allows you to scale your AoE a bit nicer. That alone is +2 radius, okay? So that is important. And then crafted AoE, also reflected, duplicated in the mirror, or reflecting mist from Kalandra. It's really nice because it gives another AoE radius. Technically, let's say you cannot get an amulet like that, you're on a budget or something like that. So you can do this combination. You get 30 from the tree, 1 point for expertise. It's right here, right? Just 1 point right here. And then the other thing is 97 from gear. You need to get a total of 97 to reach 127 additional dexterity. So the best thing to do is, well, if you can't get an amulet that has duplicated stuff, you just get a jade amulet, which with catalyst would be 36. Then you get a tier 1 dex, it doesn't matter what roll, and then you get a 97 dexterity, or even more, depends on the tier 1 dexterity roll. So you don't even need to have a duplicated amulet, as long as you get +1 fizz and tier 1 dexterity and a jade base, you're good, right? You can play the game and have everything 20, 21 even. Yeah. So there's that. Of course, you can get dexterity on a ring. You can get dexterity on the helmet, mage blood. Right. Okay, but like ideally, this is the simplest solution: duplicated dexterity +2 physical and crafted AOE. Right. Now later you can get dexterity on other pieces if you have good gear with resistances, if you go mage blood and stuff. Like, there are options, and I'm gonna make a video about a mage blood version because I'm planning to do that in the near future. But this is just like, this is great. Okay, next, defense. A lot of people are struggling with defense, and after looking through a lot of POBs, a lot of them have pretty much the same problems. So first things first, regen and rage regen. It is so important. So one thing is that having more regen means that you just take damage and then you recover quickly, right? Quicker. If you have like 100 to 200 positive regen after your righteous fire, you have a very, very low sustain, compared to like if you have 1,000 left over, right? Because you take 1,000 damage and then in 1 second you're back to full energy shield. Whereas if you take 1,000 damage and you have only 100 to 200 regen, it takes time to recover that energy shield. So regen is very, very important to make you feel tankier. Also, when you're scaling regen, you're scaling rage regen, which, well, it makes your berserk uptime better, and berserk gives you 20% less damage taken, which is a lot of defense, right? So that is also very important. If you have less than 15 rage regen per second, you will start to notice that you are waiting for the cooldown to go off way more often than if you would have 15 and more regen. Right, like of course, if you go from 14 to 15, you're not gonna see a drastic change, but 15 felt okay. And then at 20, it's very nice. It is definitely like, I don't know how many more seconds, I didn't test this, but just from playing and feeling out the build, the change is huge, and 20 is where you want to be at. And there are a few things, so if we go to the POB, there are a few things that you could look out for. So early on, when you're struggling with passive points and regen on gear, one thing that you could do is get this mastery, regenerate 2% life per second while moving. This gives you rage regen, right? Then another thing is to swap Pantheons to Aracali, and the primal one has 20% increased recovery rate of life and energy shield if you've stopped taking damage over time recently. So you cannot control this, but while you're mapping, there are degens on the ground, there are like bleeds, poisons, and stuff like that. Those are damage over time stuff, things, and you stop taking damage over time. And look, if we click this one, have you stopped taking damage over time recently? We go from 18 regen, boom, to 22. That's an incredible amount of regen. This feels very, very good. So, even just like not a consistent, but a boost in regen for 4 seconds, that is a tremendous help. Another thing for regen is these boots with the enchanted life regeneration if you've been hit recently. Again, that gives you regen. That gives you normal regen, right? So there's the regen part. Some tips about that. Right, and then moving on from regen to the next thing, which regen also helps with. So, right, normal bleeds and ignites. For ignites, we have the Pantheon that gives us less duration of ignites right here. 60% less duration of ignite on you, and then unaffected by burning ground. It's very important because we get rid of one of the most common damage over time crowns, let's just say, especially if you're farming Exarch. This is pretty much every map and it hurts. So having this Pantheon is pretty much a must if you're farming Exarch. Less duration of ignite helps with ignites. I don't really feel ignites, boxes, nothing really. Ignites don't really matter if you have regen, right? If you have 15 to 20 regen. And one more tip about the regen. There's an easy way to see in game how much regen per second you currently have. You have to look at your energy shield regenerated per second. So currently, with nothing up, I have 1700. If I activate my flask, I'm at 1961. I still don't have the boots because I changed the boots, right? Well, I don't have the enchant for the regen. So my regen will be pretty nice currently with everything up. I will be probably at like 25 regen per second. So that should feel very, very nice. But yeah, so the Pantheons, you want to swap Pantheons to Aracali. Early on, you have to use this for cannot be frozen and reduced effect of chill, but even in the budget version, I suggest you to swap into this one. Basically, what you have to do is you have to craft on the boots, cannot be frozen, right? So you get freeze immunity. As for the chill immunity, you just get this cluster, a 4 passive cluster with Wrapped in Flame, which gives you cannot be chilled while burning. Since we're using Righteous Fire all the time, we're always immune to chill. And you want to have a 4 passive cluster here for one reason. Basically, if you have a 5 passive, in some scenarios, in some combinations, you can take Wrapped in Flame and then go to the Jewel Socket. But in most cases, I saw it was that for some reason, this one was in a position where you would have to take one more small passive and then a jewel socket, right? So then you would have to take one more passive point. You spend one more passive point where you don't really have to, right? So 4 passive would be better, and this is really, really good, insanely good value. So yeah. Okay, next we have, I guess I could mention, right? So it's freeze chill, I just mentioned. Bleed, corrupting blood. Corrupting blood. Okay, one sec. So corrupting blood is very important, and I have a jewel like this with phasing, life crit multi. It's a really nice jewel. The penetration doesn't do anything, right? But if you can't get a jewel like this, you just want corrupting blood, cannot be inflicted on you. It is very important, because that is probably one of the things that are killing a lot of people. And if you don't have immunity to poison, then poison is killing you, right? So normal bleeds with regen, with our amount of regen, doesn't matter. Corrupting blood still can kill us if we get enough stacks, and then we want to get poison immunity from the life flask, right? And then shock, we are immune from the Tempest Shield skill right here. Buff grants immunity to shock, so it not only caps our spell block, it also gives shock immunity. Okay, so we are covered in terms of ailments. Okay, so make sure to cover the ailments as well, because I am covered, but a lot of the POBs were not covered in all of these ailments, and that can kill you. Right, and then chaos resistance and flasks. So again, I've seen some setups where flasks are neglected, and it is not ideal. You don't want to be neglecting your flasks. Speaking of flasks, so these are your options. Basically, if you cannot afford a bottled faith, it really doesn't matter. It's just a single target boost, and it is nice for sure, but it's good. But basically, what I was doing, even now when I was pushing to level 100, I was just using this one flask with the chance to avoid being stunned. And right, so like when we swap our pantheons, we lose you cannot be stunned if you lose that you cannot be stunned if you've been stunned or blocked a stunning hit in the past 2 seconds. Right, so it basically what it does, it doesn't allow your enemies to stun lock you. And I died at level 99 once to this. I was doing Harbinger, like really juiced up maps with Delhi and stuff, just to get more XP per hour, and yeah, there was an unfortunate event where enemies were protected and they were not dying, and I got perma-stunned, and yeah, so that was the change, the inspiration behind the change. And then a lot of people are just using this because I had this in my video. I did talk about it, that I was using this when I didn't have chaos resistance on my gear, but it seems like a lot of people just neglected that or didn't even listen to that. Whatever. But basically, these are 2 options. If you have resistance, chaos resistance on your gear, which currently I almost don't have anything because I have to swap some gear, I had to go back to an amethyst flask, and this is what I'm using. I'm using increased effect and crafted regen. You don't necessarily need the increased effect, but the duration is 6 seconds, and I believe with this build's clearing capabilities, 6 seconds are totally fine for refilling 35 charges, right? I would recommend running this because getting chaos res is pretty hard, so it's more likely that 99% of people should prefer to use this over a basalt flask. Okay, there's that. And then the other flasks, I guess I could mention armor with armor, movement speed with movement speed, and then this or bottled faith, and then a life flask with instant recovery when on low life to recover your life instantly all the time because we're always on low life, and poison immunity here. Next, life preservation and overleech. This is another pretty important thing. So in game, how you can check if you have enough preservation. Basically, you use your skills, right? And then you use your life flask. See, I got life, and now when I'm using skills, I change the life value again, which means that I have a little gap right here. If you use your skills, you use a life flask, and this value doesn't change, means that you don't have enough life preservation efficiency. You either don't have enough life total, or you don't have anomalous arrogance, which some people didn't. And then in some cases, you, well, didn't level up your arrogance enough yet. But it is a big thing because it enables you to have overleech. So you start leeching, and then because of the petrified blood, the leech doesn't end until you exhaust the leech, right? So if you have 500 leech per second, you have 1,000 leech total, you will have 2 seconds of 500 life recovery per second if you take damage. If you don't take damage, it still exhausts the leech. Okay? So this is very important. Got to make sure that the life is changing here. And one of the things that just allow you to get that gap is getting more life in the build, right? So trying to get more life on your items, or just in general, you could spec into, you know, a bit more life on the tree. 6 points, 6 points, pretty efficient, right? This here, right here, gives you regen and life. So it depends on your setup, on your gear, but yeah. Also, I mean, what allows you to do this easier is to just get a 2120 anomalous arrogance, and then you're good, but that's probably pretty expensive, so can't really recommend that. Okay, then we have endurance charges. So a lot of builds, a lot of people neglecting endurance charges. So in my low budget POB, I have this enduring composure cluster, and it is important. Like, you have to use this if you really don't want to die, right? Like, if you want to be tanky, this is a small investment for a lot of defense. Until you can get your conviction of power, forbidden flame, forbidden flesh, this is pretty important. So an option that I actually figured out when I was looking at alternatives is using an onset ring. Basically, right, so I recommend Arcane Surge on a hit ring. It is the most convenient thing to do, right? Because you don't have to worry about it at all. But an alternative is to use an onset ring that allows you to move one gem from some setup, well, something that doesn't have to be linked to anything, into your ring, and then you can add Arcane Surge level 4 to your Flame Dash, right? And then you can get a ring for very cheap, or something like this, with +1 minimum endurance charge and chance to gain an endurance charge on kill. How you get this mod is from a Veiled Chaos Orb, from an Ashling Slam, or dropping from Betrayal members, right? So you can get some of these rings very cheaply with pretty nice mods, and, you know, just craft life or whatever if it doesn't have it. And this covers your endurance charges. You don't get these endurance charges on bossing, but you shouldn't really be bossing if you're struggling and like low investment and stuff, right? So yeah, but for mapping, this is really, really good. Next, we have the Watcher's Eye Determination mod. So that is another thing that allows you to get a lot of defense. Currently, I'm using a Watcher's Eye, which gives me 55 reduced extra damage from critical strikes while affected by determination. And this is, I think, one of the better mods, but alternatively, if you have to save money or if these don't exist, alternative mods would be just physical damage reduction while affected by determination mod, and also flat armor while affected by determination, because with the Aegis Aurora you get to recover more energy shield the more armor you have, so it's a nice synergy to get more tanky. And speaking of Aegis Aurora, I recommend rushing Aegis Aurora. This is like 8 divines now, right? 6.56 divine, absolutely must. This is an absolutely must have defensive part in the build. It makes a lot of stuff in the game just a breeze. So definitely just rush Aegis Aurora. Okay, and now let's move on to the damage. So quite a few people forgot that overlap and stuff exists. So make sure that you have all 4 ascendancy points. Yes. It's not a laughing situation, we should not be laughing. Everyone forgets stuff. It's fine. But make sure, double check that you have these points. Also, what happens even to me is you type in slash passives and you can see if there's a 0 somewhere, means that you didn't do the quest and you didn't get a passive point, right? So make sure that you have that done. And if you have a 0 here from deal with the bandits, that means that you either didn't do the quest or you took the other option. I took 2 passives from killing everyone, but yeah, that's what you should do as well. Okay, next we have fist to fire conversion mastery. It is, yeah, it is very important. I've seen this in a few cases. This here. So you want to grab Avatar of Fire, that's 50 conversion, and then you want to get this one for another 40, and then we're at 90 conversion, and this is, it's fine. I played with 90% conversion for a long time, but of course 100% conversion is better. So a ring with fist damage converted to fire, this can drop from Delve. It is recommended to get, again, an unsaid ring so that you can do Arcane Surge in your links. I spent way too much money crafting this ring, but eventually this is what I ended up with, and I'm pretty happy with it. It cost me 51 divines though. So yeah, maybe don't go for the expensive essence craft, just get the conversion and you're good. Right, and then next we have Empower versus Elemental Focus. So a lot of people see that in my build I am using Empower, and then they go for Empower level 2, Empower level 3. Don't do that. This is only good if you have a +2 Amulet and a level 4 Empower. This is when you put it together and you get +2 Radius. Until that point, I would just suggest running Elemental Focus, and you get more damage than the level 4 Empower. Well, more than level 3, that's for sure. Level 4, I actually don't know. Don't remember. Maybe level 4 is better than a Ellie Focus, but you know, the price tag is yeah, it's not cheap. 6 divines versus 20 chaos, right? So Ellie Focus is fine until you have a +2 Ami and you want to invest more to get more AoE. You go level 4 Empower. Okay. Next we have crit chance. So crit chance is a problem, especially in lower investment, when you don't have the body armor with spell crit chance, when you don't have a bottled faith, right? Your crit chance could be a bit low, so what I would suggest is getting brittle on your boots. Instead of the implicit, okay, these boots are a bad example. So previously, what I was using, this one. So I had action speed and life regeneration rate. So action speed is the red influence, Eldritch currency, and the life regeneration is the blue one. So the red one, you sacrifice some speed from action speed and you get a brittle ground. And with brittle ground, you cap out your crit very easily, right? On bosses where it matters the most, you just run around, run on top of the boss every few seconds, and yeah. Next one, we have non-elevated +1 and explodey with crit. Right. So ideally, right, you want elevated +1, elevated explodey, life, tier 1 spell crit, resistances, and stuff like that. But when you're starting out, maybe you don't have the money to spend to get that much goodness in the build, on the body armor. So just going for a +1 non-elevated and exploded tier 1 non-elevated, you awaken or orb them together, and that is not very expensive. Like, that's actually 5 divines, something like this, 5 to 4 divines for that combination, and then do prefixes cannot be changed, reforge critical, so that's another 2 divines, so like 7 divines, and you can have a very, very good body armor, and you would be losing out on like 1 AoE, and that's it. So do this. This is important, not the elevation. Elevations are just luxury, as I like to say. Okay, then I talked about this, but Wrapped in Flame, it is very, very important. It is the best thing you can do. Like, it's giving you a ton of damage. It gives you chill immunity, and it allows you to go for, well, no, it doesn't allow you to go for a gem socket, a jewel socket. It gives you good stuff, okay? This is like 20% more damage for one notable, and chill immunity. It's pretty damn good. It's pretty damn good. All right, and last thing is Zealotry instead of Haste with Watcher's Eye. Right. So as you saw from my Watcher's Eye, I have some Zealotry mods, and the important one is Consecrated Ground you create while affected by Zealotry causes enemies to take 8 to 10. 8 to 10? Is it 8 to 10? I can't see it. Yeah, it's 8 to 10. It's 8 to 10 increased damage. So this is like a 10% more damage if you have a perfect roll. It's a lot of damage. So instead of running haste for clear, you just put in Zealotry, and this is how you compensate for the early stages of your gear. You go a bit slower, but you get damage from Zealotry and a cheap Watcher's Eye. Okay? And once you get more damage, once you get a better gear, you can swap to haste, and you will still have enough damage for pretty much anything that you have to kill while clearing. And last thing that I want to talk about is the blessing. It is very important. It's giving you a lot of speed if you go haste, and it's giving you a lot of damage if you go Zealotry. So how do you cast a blessing aura with only 59 unreserved mana? Well, alt quality gems matter a lot. I have a level 20 quality Divergent Divine Blessing. What matters here is the quality. If you want to reduce the cost a bit further, you can use a level 1 blessing, but this is unnecessary, and I'll tell you why in a second. Then I have 23 quality Anomalous Increased Duration. Levels don't matter at all, but you know, the more the better. But what matters here is 23 quality. And then we have Divergent Inspiration, which is the expensive gem in this setup. Costs a few divines, right? If you drop like 2-4 divines, so it's pretty pricey, but it is an important part. Without this, you pretty much cannot run it. So one thing about the 23 quality, because you might not be able to get it, right? It doesn't exist. You would have to buy non-corrupted, quality them up, and then evolve them yourself. However, until that point, so that you don't have to waste too much money early on, you can just spend 1 point here to get 10% reduced mana cost of skills, and that makes your blessing cost 0, actually. Right? Well, if you have all the gems set up already. And one more thing that is important, without this, it will not work. You need to get a Militant Faith with High Templar Dominus and reduced mana cost of skills, Pretend Devotion. You have to have it here, and you have to have all these points, otherwise it will not work. Unless you're using that mastery, then you can, for example, drop these points, but this is life and regen and mana regen, so you shouldn't drop these points. Never, never. If you really need to, you can drop these if you're using that mastery, okay? That out of the way, well, is that it? Right, one last thing, inspiration levels matter. Yeah, inspiration levels matter. It gets levels, or rather, it gets reduced mana cost per level. I think per level. Yeah, it ramps up. So level 20, you kind of need that. Okay, that's it. That's all the tips and tricks for now for the build. Hopefully that helps some people. If you're still struggling, watch the video again. All right, catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.